Hi everyone, welcome to the Knitting Turnpike. Welcome to the Knitting Turnpike. My name is Gina Pike. I'm so very happy that you're here today with me. Today we're going to be talking about an Advent project that I'm currently working on. We're going to be taking a little bit deeper dive. I have been sharing this on my 12 Days of Knitmas live shows that I'm doing for this month of December, but briefly. And I want to go ahead and dig into it just a little bit more. This is the only new project that I'm working on this month, because if you've been watching my shows, I've been trying to show you guys a whip a day. I think I have 11, 12 whips that some have been lingering for a few years. Some of them have been lingering for a couple of months. And I'm going to be taking some time in December, some of January to finish them up. There is one other project that I'm probably going to be starting after Christmas that I just can't pass up because it's too tempting for me. But I have this Advent project that I'm going to share today and my whips that I'm focusing on for December. So if you are interested in learning a little bit different viewpoint of it, you can watch some of my live shows. I would love to have you show up, chat with us, let us get to know you a little bit better. That's a totally different setting where there's a little, more direct interaction, a lot more personal, a lot more intimate. But I'm having a lot of fun with that. But today, let's get to it. Today we're going to be talking about my Advent project. Is the MKAL Advent Calendar Stole. This is my 3rd year to be knitting this project, and this is the 6th year that this designer, who is Brigit Kok, is doing this type of project. And what she does is she takes stitch patterns, different stitch patterns that she's created based on other stitch patterns, puts them together into a beautiful rectangular stole. Now, this is usually knit with lace or fingering weight yarns, and you have the option to add beads. In between each one of these stitch patterns is a section called the interlude, and I'll show you this, but you can add beads or you cannot add beads. It'll be just as beautiful without beads if you do not have beads to add to your project and want to get started. Now we are currently, we've done clues 1 through 5. I've shown you clues 1 and 2 in a previous video and the stitches that go with those clues. I will link that here, and I'll also put it in the description box if you're interested in maybe watching that. Maybe go watch that before this one so you can see how it got started. Let me show you this project and then I'll explain. Today we're going to be talking about clues 3, 4, and 5. All right, now this is my stole that I've done so far. Let me show you how big it is by now. This is 5 clues of knitting. Started it, of course, at this end. I'll give a little bit of a brief in on this. You can see how it started with a beaded picot cast on, and I'm using the yarn I'm using is a yarn from one of my favorite yarn dyers. She's an indie dyer. Her name is Diana Hughes, and she owns Diana Dye out of Georgia. This is the yarn I'm using. This colorway is called Timberwolf. I'm not sure she makes this colorway anymore. This is kind of an older one, but it's grayish beige base. This is 100% bamboo yarn, so you can kind of see the sheen on it. Super soft, and then it's got these gold speckles, yellow speckles, and all throughout. And this yarn is just amazing to work with. You can see the ply of it, and it blocks beautifully. When you block it, it holds the block perfectly well. As you can see, I've already shown you, these are the gold beads I'm using. This is a gold Miyake seed bead, glass seed bead, size 6/0. And this yarn is a heavy lace weight. I don't know if you can see it very well. Maybe I'll show you better. Like right here in the interlude, you can see the contrast with the yarn. But this is a heavy lace yarn, which is in between a lace and a fingering weight. and I just love the size of it. I usually can use the needles recommended per the pattern and get the right look for the fabric. Okay, so this was clue 1, this lacy cast on, and that's called anchors. I will put a still picture because it might be a little hard to see with me behind it. This was clue 2. That was called umbrella. I will also insert a still picture so you can maybe see the design a little bit better. Now this is where we're going to be starting today. All right, so this is clue 3, and it's called vase or vase. I'm not sure however you say it. The one thing I want to point out is this, I learned something new in this one. I don't know if you can see this very well, but every so often in the middle of this, you know, you have these beautiful eyelets, these yarn overs that create this beautiful design. But in the center section where you have the solid knitting, there are some bobbles. Like right here's a bobble, and there's a bobble. Let me hold this a little bit better. Maybe you can see it. Like there's a bobble, there's a bobble. They're not big as, now I've shown you guys how to do a loop or a bobble. I've done a 5-stitch, I've done a 7-stitch. I'll try to link that as well. This was a new way to do a bobble, and it closes it up before you move on to the next stitch. And they're not very big, but you can still see them. And I really love the effect, and I really loved learning this new way to do these bobbles. I will, it's a 3-stitch bobble. I will be showing you how to do that at the end of this video. At the end of this video, I will show you some new stitches for clues 3, 4, and 5. And if you're interested in that, please watch that. If you're not interested in the tutorial, stitch tutorial, just stop watching the video right there. And but if you are, I appreciate you watching that, and you know, making any comments you might have about that down below. That's clue 3. I love that design. Love how that the shape of that. All right, then you have the interlude right there. This is clue 4. This clue was a little bit of a bear. I hope you can see it. I will try to insert a still picture as well so you can maybe see it a little bit better. This clue, it's a little hard, I think, to see with me behind it, but it was full of cables. Every row, every right side row had tons of cables on it, and each one, like, you would have this cable next to this cable next to this cable next to this cable. So this chart that you got was like a very complicated picture. And if you made a mistake, you know, you're twisting stitches a certain way, to undo it was pretty complicated. So I took my time, took the whole 2 days that we had to knit this, and finished it late that second night, because I was just, even though it's only 30 rows, it was so complicated. I really didn't want to make a mistake after I made a mistake on the first row and had to undo it. I am going to show you, let's see, there were 4 different stitch patterns for that section, and I think the thing I want to show, I'm going to show you how to do them, but the thing I think is really important is about how you read them on the chart, because it, when you have something kind of, I'll kind of give you it looks something like this. As you see, it's very complicated. So when you have something like that, it can be a little intimidating, and you're having to look at the legend to get the stitch right. There is a way to read the chart that can give you a little bit of clue what the stitch is, so you're not constantly looking at the legend, and that's what I'm going to explain, in addition to showing you how to do those 4 cable stitches that make up that particular clue. Now the last clue we have is clue 5, day 5, and this clue is called drops. Now this is clue 5. This is called drops. You can kind of see it's got a diamond, well, yeah, a little bit of a diamond shape, and it's got like a really beautiful little lacy center section in the center of this. I will insert a still picture so that maybe you can see it a little bit better. My yarn and my board's competing a little bit, and also competing with me behind it. But for this particular section, There were a couple of different stitches, new stitches as well. There was the purl two together. There's a slip slip purl, which is a little bit like a slip slip knit, except you're purling. And there is also the knit one, yarn over knit in the same stitch, and the slip one, knit two past the slip stitch over the knit two stitch. So I'll be showing those as well in the stitch tutorial. The stitch tutorial will probably be a little bit long because there's quite a few stitches to show, but I want to do that in case you guys are making this and you don't know how to do the stitch, or you want to evaluate if that's a stitch you might be able to practice and do and want to knit this. This is I love doing projects like this because it changes and it's something completely different and just a little bit, so I don't get easily distracted and can set it aside because it's something always new. So these little stitch patterns, plus you learn different stitch patterns, and like this one that was really hard, well, it was over in 30 rows and now we're on to a different pattern. So I just think they're fun to do. There's again 12 of these clues. So that was day 5, so we've got 7 more clues. This is the size of it. It will block out a little bit bigger than this, so it makes it a little bit of a scarf stole. And we're supposed to get the last clue around the 23rd, so hopefully we can finish this before Christmas and we can finish it, block it, wear it Christmas Day, and have a new Christmas Advent stole that we made this year. It's just a lovely project, and I have been giving away free patterns on some of my lives. Some people have been getting this pattern as their free pattern, and I actually have 2 other people that are knitting this along with me that are in this family. I'm going to share their clues that I have so far. The first person is Teresa Kloppel, and I would love for you to take a look at her beautiful project. She's using a kind of a rusty brown. It looks almost like a gingerbread to me. That's kind of what I think of when I see this yarn. It's just beautiful. You can look at her clue 1. She is knitting this without beads, and you can just see how the picots pop beautifully. This is her clue 2. And that's the umbrella, and you can see the stitch definition that her yarn is giving her, which is amazing. I think my yarn didn't have great stitch definition for that clue, but hers is just, you can just totally tell the design. It's beautiful. Here's her clue 3. Look how beautiful that is with the vases, and it's really opening up very nicely. And then she was still working on clue 4 at the time I'm making this, so the next time I do an update, I will include this, or I will show it on my live. I've been showing these on my live as well. The other person in this family that's knitting this along with me is Patty Golden, and she's using a beautiful Christmas speckled yarn with the red and the green, and she's using a beautiful dark green bead. So she's using beads with hers. You can see her clue 1. Here's her clues 2 and clues 3 together. And then now this is her clue 4, and look how beautiful those cables are on her clue 4. And I probably will show their clue 4 for Teresa and clue 5s in my next live if I have those pictures. Yeah, I'll give an update for those in my lives or in maybe subsequent videos after this for this project update. So now we are to the point of where we're going to look at the stitches involved in clues 3, 4, and 5. And I've mentioned these. The first one I'm going to be showing you is associated with clue 3, and that is going to be, this is the bobble stitch that I was mentioning. It's a 3-stitch bobble, and you finish it up before you go on to the next stitch, which is kind of great because in the other ways I've done bobbles or noops before, you've had to set it up on the right side row and then you come back on the wrong side row and close it up. So this is a really great way to finish it and move on. I really like that. And it's not like a big bobble, it's just a subtle hint of texture. I really like that. This is the Advent calendar stole. This is a new way to do a bobble. I've never done a bobble this way, and I wanted to show this. There's always more than one way to do something. On this instance, you're going to do it in a purl method, so you bring your yarn towards the front. You insert into the stitch where you want to make the bobble. You do a purl. Do not pull the stitch off the left-hand needle. Do a yarn over, purl. So you do a purl yarn over purl in that stitch. Then you're done. Then you take those 3 stitches that you just created from that one stitch and pass them back to your left hand needle, and then you purl them like that, and that's your new bobble. And I've made a couple of these. You can kind of see what they look like. They're not big, but they're enough to give a little bit of texture in your knitting. And honestly, I kind of like them. They're so easy. Now the next stitch I'm going to show is associated with clue 4. These are the cable stitches that I mentioned, and also a little bit of hint about how to read the charts when you have cables. Hey everybody, I'm working on the Advent Calendar Stole, the 4th clue, and this clue has these stitches in it. It has 4 different cable stitches. There's a lot of cables in this pattern. I'm not showing you the chart. Every right side row in this clue has cables, but I want you to see something. When you're looking at charts, the way that the designer does it, the way that Brigit does it, is very, very helpful because, okay, if you take a look at this symbol here, you can see this right here is leaning to the right, right? It leans to the right. Look at the name of this. It's a RT, which means it's leaning to the right. So when you have something leaning to the right for a cable, that always means, well, in my experience, that always usually means that to make the stitch lean to the right, you have to take the stitch on your cable needle to the back of your work. Now this one, you can see the cable leans, or this is leaning to the left, which, yep, double check yourself. Yep, that's an LT. So see, when you're reading a chart, you're just going to have the picture, so you can use this leaning, the way that it leans, to help you remember the name of the stitch without having to check your legend every time. So since that's leaning to the left, I know it's a left-leaning cable. In my experience, when cables lean to the left, that means you take your the stitches on your cable needle to the front of your work. So I do have a little bit of a cheat in case I forget, but right, leaning to the right goes to the back, leaning to the left goes to the front, and you can just take a look at your picture and realize that without having to look at the legend. Same thing with this. Please forgive the color. I was going to color code this, but then I decided to change my mind at the last minute. This one is also leaning to the right. Yep, it's a R11 RPT. That means you take leaning to the right, you'll take your stitches to the back. On this one, it's leaning to the left, so you'll take your stitches to the front on your cable needle. I'm going to show you how to do all 4 of these cables real quick. All right, the first stitch I'm going to be doing, this 1-1 RT cable stitch. It's a right leaning cable, involves 2 stitches. You put your first stitch on the cable needle, push it to the back. Do not drop your stitches like I just did. Okay, give me 1 second to make sure I got all those back on. Okay, so you have your stitch to the back on your cable needle. Now on this, you're going to knit through the back loop on the stitch on your needle, and then you're going to knit through the back loop on the stitch on your cable needle. And as you can see when you're finished, this is a right leaning cable. You can see how that leans to the right there, and that's why it's called 1-1 RT. All right, the next stitch we'll do the 1-1 LT. You put the first stitch on a cable needle, hold it to the front since it's going to be leaning to the left. You're going to knit through the back loop of the stitch on your needle, and then you're going to knit through the back stitch, the back loop of the stitch that was on your cable needle, which I just put on my left needle. It was being held to the front. And as you can see, it is a left leaning cable right there. You see how this one leans to the right and this one leans to the left a little bit. All right, so the next stitch we're going to do is the 1-1 RPT. This one's a little bit different, as in you don't do the same stitch for both stitches, but it's 1-1 RPT. It leans to the right, so you take your first stitch on your cable needle to the back, and then you knit through the back loop of the stitch that's on your cable needle. of your stitches on your needle. And then you bring your yarn forward and you purl through the stitch that's on your cable needle. Okay. Now the next stitch I'm going to show you is the 1-1 LPT. Since it's an LPT, left leaning, put your stitch on the cable needle, bring it to the front, and you're going to purl through the stitch that's on your needle, and then you're going to knit through the back loop of the stitch that's on your cable needle, which I'm just going to slide up on my regular needle now. The stitch that was being held to the front, and it's a left leaning, so you can see from those, you can see how this is the right leaning one, and it does lean to the right, and this is the left leaning one and how it's leaning to the left. And those are the 4 cables that are involved in this clue 4 of the MKAL Advent Calendar Stole. All right, now we're to the part 5 where we're going to talk a little bit about the slip slip knit, purl 2 together, and slip slip purl, and knit 1 yarn over knit in the same stitch. Okay, I'm on clue 5, which is called drops for the MKAL Advent Calendar Stole. I'm going to show you guys the stitches that are involved in this. All right, the next stitch, this is a new stitch. No, it isn't. I'm sorry. The next stitch is a knit 2 together. You just take the next 2 stitches, insert your right hand needle in there as if you're going to knit them, and do that and knit them together. And it's a right leaning decrease that looks like that. And it's done a lot in this pattern. The next one is another decrease stitch where it's called a slip slip knit. You slip the first stitch as if to knit it, slip the second stitch as if to knit it, knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. That is how I do it. I have done a video where there's 4 different ways to do a slip slip knit. I will link it up above if you're interested in seeing that, because you know it is really dependent upon your type of knitting as to what might look best with the project that you're working on. So there's always more than one way to do all of this stuff. The next stitch is a new stitch, and it's called a purl 2 together. Basically, you're going to do this like you're going to purl. So you have to bring your yarn to the front. You're going to do the next 2 stitches. You're going to insert your right hand needle in the front leg of this, wrap your yarn around it, and pull your yarn through both of those stitches. So you do it's a decrease stitch. It looks like a purl stitch, except you've decreased 2 stitches instead of 1. Alright, the next stitch is called an SSP. Sounds similar to the SSK, which is a slip. This is a slip, slip, purl. And you're going to do it very similarly. Since you're going to be purling, you'll bring your yarn to the front. You're going to slip the first stitch as if to knit, slip the second stitch as if to knit. Then you're going to take these 2 stitches and put them back on your left hand needle. And then you're going to knit them together through the back loop, which you have to go through the back leg of that, purl them together, just like that, and that's what it looks like. It is a right leaning decrease. That's a slip, slip, purl. And then the last stitch for this clue is called a knit yarn over knit. It's an increase stitch. It's where you take 1 stitch and make it into 3. You do all 3 of those stitches in the same stitch. So you insert your needle as if to knit. You do a knit stitch. Do not pull it off the left hand needle yet. Do a yarn over and then insert your right hand needle back into that same stitch. Do another knit stitch, and in essence your 1 stitch has become 3, and that's what it looks like. And those are the stitches for this clue 5. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed spending some time with you today, taking a little bit deeper dive into this one Advent project that I'm currently working on. If you are interested in maybe knitting this, this is the information on how to buy this pattern. It is a paid pattern. It is in the description box below. Or if you want to come to some of my lives, I'm giving away some free patterns for some of the giveaways. If you win a free pattern, then maybe you can get this pattern. But thank you so much. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I hope to see you all very, very soon. Take care.